You want me to? Hello, everyone. My name is Kristin Snowden. I'm a licensed therapist in California, and we use these free webinars that are on the Wednesday mornings of the odd months to talk about all things related to relationship crises, infidelity, addiction, abusive relationships, just altogether unhappy relationships. And I really try to provide you the tools and education that you need to understand what's going on and move forward in a healthier way. So, with that said, I realized that in my 10 plus years in working in the intimacy disorders world, that's the blanket term we use to describe sex addiction, porn addiction, love addiction, all those kind of unhealthy relationship patterns. I sometimes forget that people really just don't understand the basics of what is sex addiction. What's the difference between sex addiction and infidelity? Um, if my partner is using porn, is he a porn addict? He or she a porn addict? I've had a strain of really unhealthy, abusive relationships. Am I a love addict? So I wanted to use this webinar as kind of like a sex, love, porn addiction 101 and help you understand the differences between, do I or my loved one have a addiction, or is this kind of like a short season of life of crisis and struggles, and we do still need professional help, but both of these types of issues are tackled in very different ways, and I'll describe that. So this is for anyone who's in relationship crisis. Maybe you've just uncovered infidelity, betrayal, finding out about porn use or money being spent on things like that, and or even substance use, and you are questioning, do I even know my partner? Who is this person that I'm married to? And hopefully after this webinar, you'll have a little bit more clarity. So I also wanted to let you know I just created a new ebook on my website, Kristin Snowden. In response to that, a lot of people find me in immediate acute crisis. So I kind of created this short, quick how-to guide to navigating relationship crises. And we talk a little bit about this. So you can go ahead and get it there. But I want to let you know that not every instance of cheating is sex addiction. And not every person who's like a love sex porn addict is a cheater necessarily, but a lot of addiction involves secrecy, lies, manipulation, etc. Not everyone who views pornography is an addict, but many people can get addicted to the state change that occurs when you're viewing porn. Similar and no different to someone can get addicted to any kind of behavior where they're experiencing some level of intensity through food consumption, using their phone, working, a particular relationship, an intense relationship, television, shopping, gambling. Humans just crave pushing away from pain and moving towards pleasure. And they'll also crave dissociating or disconnecting from any kind of uncomfortable feeling, which, by the way, that's not always just bad feelings. Sometimes it can be, I don't feel like I'm worthy of love and connection or celebration of any kind. So it's disconnection of any kind of uncomfortable feeling that I don't know what it is or what to do with it. So just remember that. And the other big thing I want you to remember is with all things related to therapy, treatment, this whole world of mental health, nothing is a problem until someone says that it's a problem. So we can't really diagnose something as a pathology or a maladaptive behavior until problems are showing up in the person's life, problems with their relationships, um, it's negatively impacting their health or their well-being or the other people around them. They may be losing their job. But also, these problems might be pointed out first by the loved ones around them. So that could be the qualifier for problems, right? Everyone around you is telling you that this is a problem, because sometimes that's how the addiction will surface. So, when faced with the issues surrounding infidelity, porn use, behaviors, lying, unhealthy behaviors and choices, sneaking around, secret keeping, and any other form of betrayal, it's really important that you engage a professional who specializes in this subject matter. Sorry, my earbud's falling out. It's really important to engage a professional who specializes in this subject matter so that they can fully assess um, if these behaviors, this cheating, this betrayal, etc., is attributed to maybe an acute dark season in someone's life, or if it's more part of a long-term, chronic, pervasive pattern of doing these types of behaviors to the detriment of themselves and other people. Now, let me qualify this. All forms of betrayal, infidelity, etc., is hurtful and destructive and devastating. All forms. If it's a single infidelity or if it's chronic over a decade, all of it is painful and turns your life upside down. But the most important thing that I want you to understand is there's a very different treatment approach to someone having a what we'd call like a single incident or a kind of compacted incident of cheating or pornography use or lying or sneaking around or even substance use versus again a long pattern, a pervasive pattern, as obsessive compulsive pattern, an unrelenting pattern of someone engaging in these patterns. The big difference when I was kind of going over this is realizing when someone is, having an affair or using substances or something because they're in a dark season of their life or just in a difficult place in space, there's a beginning, middle, and end that kind of is present. You can kind of see the things that led them to it. They're acting out choices, they're not so great acting out choices, and the consequences, and then the recovery. With addiction, there's just again more of a pervasive, unrelenting kind of doing it in spite of consequences and getting caught and swearing that it'll never happen again. So you see a more long drawn out pattern going on here. And you do really need professionals to help you see that and point it out. And let me just also say that sex addiction, love addiction, porn addiction, they are all legitimate addictions and they require appropriate social, medical, mental health support. So I'm really hoping you're listening to this and that you use sexandrelationshiphealing.com and other resources to get the right help. So how can sex, love, porn become addictive? All of these behaviors are categorized under impulse disorders often, or process addictions. Process addictions are blanket terms that we use to describe pervasive, obsessive, compulsive behaviors such as gambling, shopping, sexual acting out, other high risk unhealthy behaviors, engaging in unhealthy abusive relationships, etc. I want to break down the words. Pervasive, meaning it happens over and over again. Obsessive, meaning the person is having a hard time thinking about anything else. It consumes their thoughts. They can't stop what's happening. It's in their mind and consumes them. Compulsive means it's they can't help doing the behavior. It's a compulsion. It's like they have the itch and they can't do anything else to distract or to deter them, no matter how much they love their family, no matter how much they know what consequences will be coming their way. It's a compulsion, right? So pervasive, obsessive, compulsive. And a person acts out, does these behaviors despite their desire to stop or despite negative consequences. The behavior accompanies rituals that will alter one's mental state, emotional state, physical state. So the difference between process and chemical addictions, right? So like chemicals, like if I ingest alcohol, drugs, etc., is I'm ingesting something that's going to alter my chemistry, upregulate me, downregulate me, etc. Whereas process addictions, you actually get a chemical state change when you fantasize about it, you anticipate it, you think about it, how it's going to occur in your head, you do the behavior, and there's something ritualistic that is the act that changes your physical state that can become addictive. And I also want to point out that it's common, I ran a men's drug and sex addiction program under Rob Weiss for a long time, and it's common that you can combine both chemical addiction, right? I drink the alcohol with the acting out. Then I gamble relentlessly and lose thousands and thousands of dollars. It's common to combine them. Chemical charge, the issue with the process addiction is that you have to realize that the chemical charge that they get when they're doing these behaviors works so well in creating that pleasure or escape or intensity or distraction that they're looking for, that the addict is looking for, that they continue to chase it regardless of the consequences. So it's important to realize that this is a brain wiring issue, right? It's not an issue of can you just stop? Can you just show enough discipline? If you loved me enough, you wouldn't do this anymore. It is a very subconscious, unconscious, deep wiring of like, when I feel yucky, this is how I get out of the feelings. When I don't even know what yucky feels like. I just know that this is the behavior that I go to, and then the ritual, I seek it out, and then it's a habit forming. So when you are trying to change these behaviors, get recovery from these behaviors, it requires a lot of rewiring, a lot of replacement behaviors, a lot of working towards increasing the addict's tolerance for uncomfortable feelings, or just even understanding what a feeling is. I am happy, I'm sad, I'm hungry, I'm angry, and working through better choices to respond to those feelings. Those are just a few treatment approaches. Now, let's talk a little bit about intimacy disorders, the term intimacy disorders. I've personally always preferred the term intimacy disorder because it encompasses more of what we're talking about. With the sex, love, porn addiction, it's not just about the sex. It's not just about the love or relationship torment and toxicity. It's not just about the porn use. What's happening here is that we are neurobiologically wired to want to connect with other human beings. There's this wiring to want to be moving towards other people. Lots of feel-good hormones tend to come out when we're doing that successfully. And then yucky feelings and chemistry comes out when we're not doing it successfully, when we feel rejected, when we feel like we're not enough, when we've disappointed other people. And basically, if we never really learn the skills of how to handle the good and bad of connecting with other flawed human beings in this vulnerable world where I can't control you, you can't control me, weird stuff happens, you say things out of hurt and pain, but I take it personally and I think I'm a bad person and I'm wrong. All this, I'm summarizing something that I could talk about for weeks and weeks and weeks, but essentially, at some point, I go, gosh, this connecting with other humans is scary and I don't like it. Like, I don't like this whole intimacy, vulnerability thing going on. But you know what I can connect with, where I feel very powerful, is when I drink this bottle of Jack Daniels, or when I pop this prescription drug, or when I go watch that smut on TV or on my phone, or I scroll mindlessly in Instagram. I have an intimacy disorder because at some point I start saying, I'd rather form an intimate relationship with this acting out behavior, or this substance, ingesting this substance. I have an intimate relationship with that instead of dealing with the discomfort of going out, making myself vulnerable, and learning how to do this whole relationships thing with other people. So that is why we call sex, love, porn, and just frankly, any addiction an intimacy disorder. Because at some point I'm saying I'd rather develop essentially this affair, this deep connection, and kind of give my all my thoughts, all my feelings or lack thereof to this behavior, rather than going out and doing this tough thing called human relationships and having companionship and realizing that maybe I'm perfect, but I'm imperfect, but I'm lovable. So are they. Can we kind of love each other in spite of our flaws? Have companionship, build history and experiences together as a group, and get the benefits from that. That all is too scary and yucky for me. So instead, I go to the really controlled way of altering my state. And I go to the substance or the unhealthy behavior. So that's why we call it intimacy disorders. And I hope you can understand that. So let's talk about what sex addiction can look like, sex, love, and intimacy disorders. They can manifest in a very different way. Just similar again, let's go to the substance abuse. We can say, hey, I'm a substance abuse addict. Some use alcohol, some use methamphetamines, some use prescription drugs. There's lots of different ways that addicts will consume chemicals to change their state. They do it in different ways. They sometimes will just binge drink and then they won't drink for a week. Or they'll just slowly every night drink or pop the pills or whatever. So similar to the way that chemical addictions can look very different depending on the person, the time, the problem, the crisis, everything, the people around them. Sex and love and porn addiction can also vary, but I'll give you some examples. Let's talk about the basic requirements for qualifying someone as an addict. These things have to be present for someone to be diagnosed as, an official addict. First, there needs to be instances of using more of the substance or engaging more in the behavior. So again, if it's a behavior, not ingesting, because it's very obvious, ingesting more alcohol, ingesting more drugs more frequently, more quantity. With the sex, love, and porn addiction, it's the frequency, right? Or the intensity. That I used to watch maybe vanilla porn, and now it's gotten into like more violent types of porn or more extreme on the fringes types of porn. Or, I used to just have affairs, but now I mix affairs with prostitutes and the whole online kind of dark world or fetishes or something like that. So it's about upping the ante, continuing to consume more or do something more in an more intense way or higher frequency. The other way is you've tried to stop. So there's been promises made to yourself, to your loved ones. I swear I'll cut down, or after a really bad weekend, okay, never again, never again. Or I've heard, the alcoholics that are like, oh, I'm gonna not drink hard alcohol. I'm just gonna drink beer. Or I'm, on the porn sites or the sex side, okay, I'm only gonna do this, or I'm gonna only act out in this certain way that you kind of told yourself, I don't have a problem as long as I only do it this way. So you continue to use or engage in the behavior even when it causes problems in your relationship. Oh, I'm sorry, I switched. Tried to stop is wanting to cut down or stop, but unable, make promises and unable to stop, and have broken promises, lots of broken commitments, broken promises. The third thing is social problems. Continuing to use or engage in these behaviors, even when it causes problems in your relationships, or continuing to choose the substance or the acting out behavior instead of connecting with your partner, going towards other people. Instead you're just at home drinking alone. You used to at least go to the bars and drink, but now you're just drinking in your car in front of the drugstore, right? Or you used to just maybe flirt inappropriately at work, but now you're texting while you're at home and you're ignoring your wife and your kids while you're flirting, or you're watching the pornography, or you're thinking about the pornography while you're sitting at the dinner table. So you're not even engaging with your family anymore, the social problems. 4 is risky use. You use or engage in these behaviors, or you ingest the substances despite physical, legal, emotional consequences. For the chemical ingestion, that's obvious. There's physical consequences to ingesting the alcohol or drugs or whatever. So when we talk about risky use with sexual behaviors or toxic relationships or porn use, there's a lot more like, wait, none of this is risky, but that's not true. People will when they up the ante, they'll maybe view illegal porn, They will go to some dark places and spaces to act out, engage with some seedy people where there's a lot of danger going on. They can create physical consequences by doing risky sexual acting out behaviors. So there are ways, and again, only usually professionals who specialize in this can kind of weed that rationalization and minimization out when they're like, oh, I'm not harming anyone. There's no social problems. That's not true. And then the fifth one is lost time. You spend a lot of time either seeking out that behavior, fantasizing about the behavior, using the substances, acting out, recovering from the use, sitting in shame about how bad you are and how horrible you are, and you isolate from everyone because you're such a bad human being and making a bunch of promises. So time lost, that you just look at pictures of you from the past and you're like, I don't even remember what was going on back then because I was so consumed with my acting out behavior. Also, there's signs of dependency. So there's like a physical dependency of needing it. You can't manage your feelings unless you're, using these behaviors or you're using the substances. Increased tolerance, again, that goes with needing more. You have a higher tolerance for, that porn doesn't do it for you anymore. Just acting out in this way doesn't do it for you anymore. Just drinking a pint of vodka doesn't do it for you anymore. So you have to increase the amount of alcohol you're drinking. And then withdrawals. Again, sex, love, porn addiction, people understand alcohol withdrawals, right? You get the shakes, but there are absolutely withdrawals when there is sex, love, porn addiction. You can become extremely anxious, angry, obsess so much about how you can get back there, how you can rationalize it. You want to crawl out of your skin because you can't handle, you're obsessing about the affair partner and what he or she's doing, or can't wait to get your hands on a way to escape the house, maybe get in an argument with your spouse so he or she kicks you out. So then you're justified to go act out, right? Those are all parts of the withdrawal, the antsiness, the discomfort in your own body, the shame. So some more examples of love porn, sex addiction. It can look like multiple affairs, extramarital affairs with paid or unpaid participants, obsessive dating through personal ads, social media, dating apps, online websites, multiple or anonymous sex partners, online or work affairs, one night stands, obsessive or compulsive use of pornography, internet sites, continuous, unsafe, dangerous, illegal sexual encounters, exhibitionism, voyeurism, stalking, compulsive masturbation, despite harm from it or the desire to cut down, sexual harassment, inappropriate boundary violations of flirting. So like a lot of times they go into the workplace and they're inappropriate. They don't understand how to read energies of like, you're the creepy person that makes me feel uncomfortable. They're constantly pushing boundaries. Sexual advances towards others who are maybe in vulnerable positions, right? So someone, a boss hitting on people under them, kind of exploitive relationships. History of chronic, highly toxic, dangerous, or abusive relationships. Just last week, I did a YouTube video on intensity seeking versus intimacy seeking. And I talk a lot about this, that we kind of get addicted to the intensity seeking cycle. So we can kind of be in love with these exploitive, abusive, we can be addicted to those types of relationships and they draw us in and change our physical state. Sex addiction is not. Sex addiction is not just a bad person, a broken bad person who just doesn't know how to make right choices. Addicts are not bad people. They have just made bad choices while trying in their best thinking, albeit messed up thinking, but it was their best way to get out of yucky feelings so they could continue on in life and get through life. I'm not excusing their behavior. It's damaging, it's harmful, it hurts other people, but they are humans who make bad choices in states of hurt and pain and shame and trauma. It's not a moral failure. Sex addiction isn't because they have an absence of religious or spiritual belief system. It's not because they're, people who are out there exploring, am I gay? Am I not? Am I bisexual or not? And they're trying to figure out those answers. That's not like necessarily sex addiction. If they're just figuring out gender identity, orientation. Sex addiction or intimacy disorders aren't necessarily a sign of a broken relationship. Sex addicts, in their own way, and again, it's confusing, but in their own way, can love their partners that they're married to, but still act out. And again, it's confusing, and their, definition or showing of love definitely needs to be worked on and revamped. But it usually, as many sex addicts will say, I love my partner. It's just, just like an alcoholic. I love my partner. I want to be married to my partner, but this is my precious little like side, thing that I have going on that I don't want to get rid of. Sex addiction is not always if someone is seeking out fetishes or consensual non-monogamy or anything that's open and consensual and done without shame and done transparently. And there is not always, by the way, sexual abuse in a sex, love, porn addict's history. So that's a myth that I want everyone to understand. Just because you have a sex issue and it's an intimacy issue around sexuality doesn't mean that it's based in some kind of sexual abuse. Does sex abuse sometimes cause that? Yeah, sure, but it's not a always thing. So let's talk about the assessing and treating of sex addiction. Well, luckily we have amazing resources online now, like Seeking Integrity and sex and relationship healing.com. But what do you do if you feel like your loved one is struggling with this? Well, you email Tammy VeraHealth. No, that's what I usually say. We send everybody to the professionals so we can all assess, okay, how big is this problem? Is this like a send someone to treatment kind of problem, or is this like we got to get him or her in a group, or send them to outpatient types of things? We can assess how serious, how dangerous these behaviors are, the co-occurring of chemical use and behavior use, and really figure out how much we need to get this person the help they need. So most addicts, I want you to understand, believe their their struggles are unique. They all think they're unicorns. That's why they keep these secrets. They live in deep shame and they compartmentalize everything that's going on. Therefore, the antidote to these addictions is transparency and openness. It is imperative that they engage a recovery community with others who have struggled in a similar way. So they're like, hey, I get it. I've been through it too. There's nothing you can say that I haven't heard already. So lack of judgment and also better accountability. Hey, guess what? That crappy stuff happened to me in my childhood too. But here I am still trying to hold myself accountable and staying in alignment with my values and goals. It's hard, but I've done it. If you want this, you can come to here and I can help you. And that's why 12 steps can be so powerful. So struggled in the same way, they need to share their stories. They need to listen to others share their paths to recovery, develop honest, vulnerable connections with people in their recovery community, and humble and surrender themselves to structure, commitment, accountability, and just the good old understanding that them on their own make bad choices. The addict gremlin in me wants me to go out and seek intensity, seek distraction, run away, forget who I am, forget my promises and commitments, and just make bad choices that are misaligned with who I am as a person. So I have to keep a team around me of people who can kind of smell my BS, call me out on it, and I need to kind of humble myself to that influence, that feedback loop system. And then there's also a great deal of freedom that can be achieved by an addict once they finally come to terms with their disease and take steps towards healing, right? It's exhausting. to be an addict and keep those secrets and feel that shame and make all those empty promises and see the disappointment on their family's face time and time again. So there is great freedom when you finally humble yourself and surrender yourself and give yourself up to your recovery community and a higher power, whatever that might be. So all those things are accessible in 12-step models, AANA, SPAA, Sex and Porn Addicts Anonymous, Sex Addicts Anonymous, Love Addicts Anonymous. There are so many 12-step fellowships. You can find links to them, again, on sexandrelationshiphealing.com, Seeking Integrity. I have some on Kristin Snowden. There's also great workshops. I have betrayed partners groups. Seeking Integrity and sexandrelationshiphealing.com has really great groups for addicts and for the betrayed partners. There's so much access. Really quick assessment that I'm going to give you. You can go online, by the way, and you can look up screening tools. There's like the SAS, the sex addiction screening tools. There's the porn addiction screening tools. There's the love addiction screening tools. You can kind of look up all those things and they'll pop up on various websites. And you
We
can
have
do
them
this,
on our homepage of our website. Like there's a chemical one, co-occurring chemical, and a separate sex and porn addiction. They're right on our site. They're super
right
accessible.
on your sword.
Yes.
Ask a question for yourself, but let's just ask. So consider the following while exploring. Do you explore your sexuality in a safe environment, not risking your health or safety, or impinging upon others' health or safety, or is it consensual? Are your actions in line with your beliefs and values, not someone else's beliefs and values, but your own, and without shame? If you're in a committed monogamous relationship with someone, do you uphold and respect that commitment? Do you follow through with your promises? Do you ever have to lie, cheat, or manipulate in order to get your needs met? Recovery from an addiction takes a supportive village with professionals who are educated and trained on addiction recovery and betrayal trauma for the betrayed partners who have suffered quite a bit of trauma, loving and being in a relationship with addicts. So I really hope that if you or someone you know is struggling with addiction and this has resonated with you, you can always email me, Kristin Snowden, mft@gmail.com. Tammy is always a wonderful resource as well. There's other online communities that you can engage as well. And we're here to answer whatever questions, and both my site and her site currently are adding workshops for betrayed partners, for addicts, etc. Just go on both sites and I'm happy to answer any other questions.
And we do have a question, but I'm so grateful you shared like across the board, and really all forms of addiction are intimacy disorder. People often use intimacy for just sex, but sex addicts prove that you can have sex and have no intimacy. But it's just, it's dopamine. Dr. Rob, as you said too, often uses intensity versus intimacy, and intimacy is real connection, and you cannot have sex and be really intimate with friends and other people and very connected, and you can have sex and have no connection. So learning to live in recovery is learning to do things differently. And I personally don't use bad and good, because like I get all caught up in I'm a bad person then. So as an addict, I go, oh, that wasn't my best choice, I made a poor choice, I made a poor decision, all of those things, and that's just a me thing. But if I do something and I learn from it, then that's just more of my education. The compulsions, I think it's so important to remember, yes, we have this compulsive behavior, and we can learn in recovery with tools and with help and with professional help and with community help to choose differently. And so we are not caught, we are not just, chained to our addiction and like, oh, it's hopeless. So it's a reason, but not an excuse to, continue that. And the pervasive, yes. And I hear this one always I smile at it because it's like, oh, I don't have time to go to a 12-step every day. And I was like, I bet you had time to think about, fantasize
Right.
about, just, be
Be
focused on
all consumed all the time.
by your
Yes.
addictive behavior. And like you start saying that and you go, oh, okay, yeah, like 1 hour a day to work on something. Like you said, this is pervasive. So this is a 24/7 issue, and we can learn to do things differently. So there's a lot of gratitude for that. I'm grateful for professionals who, are there to help assess. And like you said too, there are people that struggle with unwanted behaviors like a fetish or whatever. That does not necessarily mean it's sex addiction. So getting the help to identify. Now, can you choose not to engage in things? Absolutely. I can choose not to eat a chocolate cake, so I can
Right.
learn, but it is a choice. And again, holistically, because, if I stop this behavior and now I'm just doing this, all I've done is switch, and I'm not really addressing, those issues that are, that are underlying for this, and, the porn induced in erectile dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
I think lots of people go to their doctors and are looking for meds, and the medical community is not asking those questions. They're just going,
Nope.
oh, here's a pill, and so going, what's really going on? And we hear people who have really negative consequences, physical consequences. You mentioned, legal consequences. The FBI showing up at your door and taking everything
Mm-hmm.
unexpectedly is really not fun, and that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Financial. You think you're sexting to your coworker and you lose your job, or blackmail. We hear that all the time too. So
Mm-hmm.
there,
Mm-hmm.
the story I'm telling myself, as you say, the story I'm telling myself is, oh, there's nobody getting hurt by this, until, the stuff hits the fan, and all of a sudden now the entire community knows, and your
Yeah.
family, everybody knows, and
Yeah.
so getting help, like if you're here, nobody comes to this stuff because there's everything's hunky-dory in their relationship. So you're here for a reason, but please know that there is qualified help. There is hope for people to choose it. And nothing a partner does or doesn't do causes. And even every addict has stuff in their lives, and yes, it can be sexual abuse or not, but not everybody who is sexually abused turns into an addict. There's
Yes.
stuff,
Yeah.
and we can learn to do things differently in community. So, okay.
Yeah.
So, first question, Kristin. I have recently, in the past 2 weeks, disclosed infidelity, sex addiction via sexting to my partner. I was using dating sites to message women for the past few years, and it has impacted my partner, who has been living with me for the past year, dating for 2 years. All of these accounts have since been deleted, and I feel enormous sense of relief without them. I self-diagnosed sex addiction from reading about it and listening to Sex, Love, and Addiction podcasts. I have started therapy, and she will start next week. She is incredibly hurt and wonders if she will ever be able to trust me again. She has been receptive to discussion with me, but I don't feel equipped enough yet to know exactly how to engage with her. Her hurt is still very raw, and I want to be as sensitive as possible to her feelings and needs, and would like some tips on how to approach her. I've been patiently listening, avoiding defensiveness, and performing breathing practices before responding to any concerns or questions.
Well, first, there's so many things that I want to applaud in this comment that you've added. I see a lot more empathy and emotional intelligence than many who often are kind of coming clean about this stuff. Usually there's a lot of defensiveness and a lot of compartmentalization going on. So I want to applaud that. Keep that going. That
Mhm.
alone, that kind of openness, and you even just trying to understand and trying to be patient about the healing process is going to help your partner heal. Something we talk about all the time is that you might finally now feel relief because you're coming clean about something you've known about for a long time, but your partner's just hearing it now. So it's like you've kind of been struggling and fumbling through this and going through this difficult, exhausting process on your own. And then when you come clean, you're just like, okay, no more lies. I'm deleting the sites. Okay, I'm moving on. But now your partner is going through the past 2 years of the relationship going, oh my gosh, that's what was happening. Oh my gosh, that's why he or she was so disconnected from me. Oh my gosh, and that's just kind of, that's how we deal with trauma. We just start picking up all these old memories and start, well, is that why you're doing that? Tell me this, is this, okay, how many? I need to know details, because those are the things that your body craves when you feel so unsafe and you uncover something that's so shocking and earth shattering. They're trying to figure out, who are you and who have you been? And how do they need to keep themselves safe in the future? So this is going to be a long process. Remember, any trickle disclosure. So I would come clean with all of it. If you're seeing a therapist and they're seeing a therapist, I would encourage maybe like a full disclosure to kind of get it all laid out. So there's not a trickle disclosure. Oh, well, I forgot about this website, or I forgot about this email, or I forgot about these people who are texting me back, etc. Try to get it all out, and then there is a process towards, healing and recovery from there. But yes, have patience, expect the emotional roller coaster, um, and try to just listen and hear the fact that this person now questions everything about you, about them, about every relationship that they've ever had in their life, about their ability to judge people and judge people accurately for someone who's safe and worthy of like their vulnerability and intimacy. And you need to kind of just reprove to them that you've made bad choices, but you're creating a structure and accountability system that is going to stop you from making those bad choices over and over again. I'd also encourage you, besides therapy, to also engage a group of people who've struggled in a similar way to help keep you accountable, and so that you can be reaching out to them instead of going back to poor choices. Anything else, Tammy? What did I
Well,
miss?
yeah, I was going to tag onto the group stuff because I love the podcast. Kristen's been on with Dr. Rob on sex, love, and addiction, but that's information coming at you. There's no accountability. There's no, oh yeah, me too. There's no empathy. There's, yeah, I appreciate that you're taking time to breathe instead of being defensive. Huge, like that, that doesn't happen usually, early on. So good job on that. And just like Kristen said, she got hit by a truck. So I did put there's a link to all the 12 steps, like there's a bunch of them for you. All those that Kristen mentioned and more. And then online work groups, like the porn addiction 101 starts soon. Sex addiction 101 just started on Monday, but we'll start again in February. So, we have free drop-in groups. Like there's so many resources. The more you learn, the more get a good 3-circle plan. Make sure you've got, all of those things. And then, holding space for her. I hope she also listens to, some of the podcasts and starts engaging,
Right.
like all of these webinars. There's thousands of hours, that have been posted on our website, Kristen, but many others as well, that are supportive resources. They're not going to fix everything, but they're going to continue to give you good information and resources to move forward. We talk for partners, healthy boundaries. So your partner can learn, some tools to learn to help have healthy boundaries and safety. Um, uh, so keep coming back. You're very early in the process, and yes, you feel a sense of relief because you've, like Kristen said, you've come clean. And I call that kind of the vomit disclosure, because here's the deal: you feel better, and she got drenched, and it didn't. There's usually not a supportive environment. It wasn't, with therapists, so she's got the stench of all of this on to deal with. But that said, you guys can each and both get healing and have a better relationship than you ever imagined if you're both willing to participate in that. So, which kind of goes to the next question. Okay, how do betrayed partners reconcile staying in the relationship knowing relapse is part of recovery? How do we keep the focus on experience outside the problem in the relationship? And I know lots of people say relapse is part of recovery, and there's a bunch of people that, I mean, like it can be, it's always hanging out there, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be.
Well,
Like
and
everybody
relapse
goes, oh,
doesn't
it
mean,
always happens, so
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and relapse doesn't need to be like if my partner's previous acting out problems was that he or she was going, having extramarital affairs with multiple people. There's nowhere that says that you need to tolerate that level of relapse. But
Right.
a relapse would also even be I was lying about where I was, or I said I would not drink alcohol during the recovery, the 6-month recovery, and I started drinking again and didn't tell you. So there's different levels or types of relapses that exist that, you can, by the way, have non-negotiables and say,
Mm.
if you ever cheat on me in this capacity again, we are over. But stomach, line issues, or, to walk through other problems that were maybe not as extreme as something that you're just like, there's no way I can stomach that type of relapse. But how do we keep the focus on our experience outside of this problem? Is I just hear, how do I feel safe in repairing with this person, knowing they can lie, act out, kind of it. And that's a tough thing. That's again why I encourage they never do this alone, because sometimes you feel safer knowing they're going to these meetings, or they're in daily contact with a sponsor who has maybe 5 years clean, 10 years clean from these behaviors. And or sometimes you do feel safer having a tracker on their phone, checking their website history, other kind of um, security systems. But yeah, this is the vulnerability of relationships. This person is very flawed. And you're trying to repair the ruptures that have occurred in the relationship, but also with this extreme vulnerability and risk that they might just go back to their concerning and unhealthy and damaging behaviors and lie to you and put you through this whole thing again. Um, Go ahead. What are you thinking, Tammy?
Well, I mean, like I've been in recovery a long time, and I don't promise anybody that I'll never ever ever again, but I do what I need to do on a daily basis. And I think that's a lot of it what it is. If you are seeing, as Kristen said, going to 12-step meetings, doing actionable things. If you are seeing actions, that does, we say that to addicts all the time. What are your actions showing? It's not the words, it's like Kristen said, broken
Mhm.
promises. Oh, I'll never do that. Oh, that was so, even the last one, great, he feels better, in that moment, but guess what, that fades. Oh, I feel better, and then things are uncomfortable and my partner's not, whatever, and then it's like, oh, or switching to something else, so it really is, what are the addict's actions, and your boundaries, your healthy boundaries, physical safety, emotional safety, financial safety, spiritual safety, and
Mhm,
those
mhm.
can flex, like not non-negotiables, like Kristen said. But if you go, oh, I'm using he and she, he's showing up differently, he's showing me, and so I'm gonna be willing to put a little trust in this. And if something happens, you kind of go, okay, I need to pull back in, I need to create my safety a little closer to me. I'm gonna, whatever it is, I need to sleep in a separate bedroom, whatever it is, but I think if you're aware of that. But the one thing, and we talk, so Debbie Allen did a webinar last year, and she talked about the 3 circles for betrayed partners, and I love that, because sometimes if all of the focus is on the addict and their actions, like it sucks the life out of partners too. Like, how can you have joy if you're constantly focusing on just that one person? And I get it early on, and so I think the more you're able to go, the addict's going to do what they're going to do, I have no control over that. I can monitor my safety, I can monitor my healthy boundaries for me, and I can, I have people and support, and I've got these things in my life that have nothing to do with, my granddaughter just visited, I went horseback riding. Well, there's joy in that, and that has nothing to do with my recovery. So there's lots of things that you can do that will help give you joy. And I think it takes the perspective away from the focus just on, the addict and their
Hmm.
behavior. I hope
Hmm.
that makes sense. So
Yeah,
but here's the deal.
that's
No
great.
judgment. Like, whatever you choose to do, I hear sometimes people judging, oh, you're staying with that person. And it's your relationship, it's your life. What is right for you and what is right for you right now, that's, and if it's a good decision to stay right now, yeah, and 6 months from now it's not, I think you'll know. But get support and input, to help guide you the process. So, okay, do you ever refer to a professional psychologist that specialize in betrayed partners that take insurance in California? I know a lot of professionals do not take insurance and maybe out of net. Email me that. That's Tammy, TAMI, at seekingintegrity.com. But I only refer to, certain people. But most most CSATs, I'll be honest, don't take insurance, but can provide a super bill that can be submitted to insurance. So when people are
Hmm.
just focusing on insurance, it's tougher. Okay, so then the second part, I learned that there is an addiction group for addiction to under earning. Oh yeah, stemming from symptom of childhood wounds. That opened up so much hope for me, because I learned that there are others who struggle with this, and a way forward. So one of the assessments that we do with guys coming into our program is money and work issues. And it can be under earning. It can be underachieving at work because you're, doing 4 hours a day, at work, or whatever.
Hmm.
It can be overspending. It can be lots of different things. Debtors Anonymous, and we've got resources that link for 12 step. There's Debtors Anonymous. I think there's Under Earners Anonymous too, but there are so many programs for 12 step. Like, I can't even, like, some of them I didn't even know there were. So yeah, just understanding that, if it's problematic, and understanding you have worth, and, are deserving of having a different thing. So lean into any of those resources. So, have you heard of Under Earners Anonymous? I think I have heard of that one, but I don't
I haven't
remember.
heard of under earners, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna look.
absolutely. It's that vulnerability. If I never try, then I never have to reconfirm that terrible voice in my head that's
Yep.
telling me I have no value in life. So if I never try, I don't have to ever find proof that that it's true. I am valueless. So yeah, absolutely. It's in the addiction world, there's the overachievers that are like, okay, as long
Yes.
as I make a ton of money and I'm the
Yeah.
CEO, then I'm never going to be that bad. And it's going to be proof or a way that
Yeah.
I can keep doing my behavior and justifying it. And then there's others who are, as you're saying, this this childhood wound of like, uh-oh, I really hope that I'm not all these horrible things that I think I am. And so I just don't even want to go out there and make myself available to confirm that through rejection or not achieving what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's you're
And you,
awesome for
like,
getting help.
yeah, and like you said, the facade is, as long as it looks good, like, I've got all of these
Hmm.
things and I'm making
Hmm.
all of this money, but it's that same
Hmm.
facade, but it's like the reverse of the facade. If it's like, oh, I'm so horrible, I'm not worthy of whatever, it feels like, it still comes from a false, false sense of self. So, oh, I should mention I also have erectile dysfunction and was diagnosed by a previous partner when I wasn't able to perform, and since then have been on medication for this. But I feel like it's part of my infidelity issues. I don't know.
Yeah, it's pretty common. I had just a friend, an acquaintance, talk about dating somebody recently, and said, "Oh, but there's erectile issues." And I said, "Oh, how well do you know this person? And have you talked about his porn use?" And it turns out, she went back, and I guess they had the relationship where they can talk about hard things, and he kind of came clean that he had a pretty significant porn use issue that was attributing to his erectile dysfunction. So, is it always the reason? No. I mean, there's a lot of different medical organic reasons for erectile dysfunction. So please go to your doctor. But there is a lot of information coming out that kids in their 20s or 30s, just way before we used to have erectile dysfunction show up in the doctor's office, they're showing up, and often it's attributed to porn use, infidelity, etc. So general practitioners are needing to get brushed up on assessment tools for sex addiction, porn addiction, etc.
Yeah, well, and this is like, we don't recommend generalist therapists because they don't ask those questions. Substance use programs, lots of people go to substance use programs, and then eventually they find out, oh, I had a co-occurring, sex and porn addiction, and no one talks about it. So
Right.
there's a lot of, it is why we recommend specialists for this field, because they have the tools to be able to really help. I often say it's like having cancer. You want the cancer specialist. I love my GP, like, great. And for GP things, great. If I've got cancer, I'm going to the cancer specialist. If I've got something
Right.
specific, I need the right help in order to make things different. So, okay. So, Kristin, the next one, I struggle with the word consensual as a partner. Sex workers in person and online can seem to be consensual partners, but coercively controlled as a victim of human trafficking. But more importantly, I, as a partner, did not consent to having unprotected sex with all of his acting out partners. In what circumstances is there ever consent regarding a secret sexual addiction?
Well, I understand what you're saying, but that term is more for people who are not in monogamous relationships. So I was trying to give a blanket explanation of all sex, love, and porn addiction, which includes people who are single. So they can be out there in the dating world and they can say, oh, well, I am currently having sex with 3 different people at the same time, but all of them know about it. We are all in agreement to it. Now, who knows? To me, I think personally, with it, knowing the chemicals that come out when you have sex and connection with other people, I would have a lot of follow-up questions about that personally, about the health and safety and vulnerability and intimacy, or what their general goals are when they're having sex with 3 different people at the same time. Not judging, but I would just have a lot of different questions and curiosity about that. But the word consensual is more for like, um, I'm not married, I'm not making commitments and promises to one person while acting out secretly behind anyone's back. There's no consent when there's any form of lying and secret keeping and double life living. So just to clarify that.
Yes, and here's a challenge. I hear this often. People that want to be in open relationships, but if there really is addiction, even with, let's say, broader boundaries, the addicts still, have a hard time, or find it impossible to live within those broader boundaries. But yeah, it can't be consensual if you don't know about it. You can't give consent to
No,
something you didn't know about. So, okay.
no.
Next one. I want to know more about the science of community, because recently I shared with a couple of friends about trying to understand what I experienced for 6 years, and someone who lied compulsively to me, severely gaslighted me, and hid his addiction and love with his ex-girlfriend. One of my friends responded with, block him, you are going backwards, move on. Self-love is the answer. The other friend responded, you betrayed yourself, you gaslighted yourself. I realize that they have not healed themselves, but for someone who was so abused and trying to make sense of moving forward, the last thing
Mm.
they need is further gaslighting, shame, blame, judged harshly, or a door slammed on them. The person needs empathy. Do these groups have rules, or how does this work? So let me share how our drop-in groups go, because that, and we say this all the time, finding somebody who actually understands this. I mean, unfortunately, what you got, and I'm sure Kristin would affirm it, you got the typical answer, or family saying, throw the bum out or whatever. They don't understand. They just don't understand. So yeah, our drop-in groups we've got drop-in group rules. I'll put a link to that, but it is a safe place. We don't bash. We don't, we aren't name calling. We are not, and they're all moderated. There's a person there to hold the safe space. And we work from a pro-dependent lens. So we are not using codependent language. We are not, pathologizing loved ones.
Yeah.
So check those out.
You are not the reason why the person decided to abuse, lie, sneak around, cheat. In fact, you were denied all the information you needed to make the next best choice. So sorry, I
Yes.
didn't mean to
And
cut you off,
no, no,
but
no,
it's
but
I
yeah,
get
no.
frustrated with this. We hear this story all the time. It's one of the reasons why I'm very impassioned to do what I do. It's why I have betrayed partners groups, because you are correct. You've just been betrayed, and kind of hurt by the person you have trusted the most, the last thing on earth you need is other people around you betraying you by shaming you, making you feel like you're wrong, making you feel like you're some messed up person that you want to hang around in the relationship and see if he or she's capable of changing and getting recovery, etc. So that is why I encourage people to seek out people who have struggled in a similar way. And that includes the betrayed partners seeking out fellow betrayed partners who can understand what's going on here, can understand gaslighting, and can understand how to show up with empathy, can understand what they needed when their crisis was uncovered and try to be that for somebody else.
Do you have time for 2 more questions?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. So the next one, what is the best loving way to respond when a partner is hurt when you say you don't feel safe with sex at this point? We are only 2 weeks out from the most recent occurrence, 25 plus years with several discoveries, but the first time I've decided to set this boundary.
Um, I think the way you just wrote it sounds,
That's what I was
that
thinking
I'm
too.
feeling deeply betrayed, and having sex, like making myself so vulnerable to you, sounds awful to me. So unless, having sex with essentially a non-consensual person sounds good to you, which it doesn't sound very good to me, I'm going to have to lovingly say, show me a couple months of you being the person I hoped you would be and being the person I would want to have sex with. Someone who's consistent, predictable, does what they mean what they say, shows up, has worked to try to heal my broken heart and my betrayed state, and has earned the right to do such a vulnerable act with me. Not to mention there's also the physical risks. If you're so recent 2 weeks from the most recent occurrence, I'm not sure what the occurrence is, but there's risks of contracting STDs and other unhealthy things. So you have absolutely the right to set up that boundary, and I say bravo, because setting up boundaries is scary and hard and exposes yourself to more vulnerability. um, but it's a really great act.
Dr. Rob always says, why would you want to have sex with someone you don't trust? And that person has shown that they are not trustworthy. So, and I agree with Kristin, get STD tested. And if he says it was just porn, still go get STD tested. You have control over your body. That's one thing that you do have control of. And you know what? It may not be, oh, now we're going to go have sex. It's like we may just hold hands, maybe, sensate, focus, touch. There's all kinds of ways to get back to sexual intercourse, but it doesn't have to be, okay, it's been X amount of days and now I trust you and we're going to do. It can be like, you need to show me that you are a safe person. But yeah, to me it's like there's some earning the right to go that seems necessary first. Okay, last question. Help. I've been married 27 years and had had an accidental discovery by being diagnosed with 2 STIs. Turns out there has been a porn and masturbation addiction from adolescence before we met. It de-escalated for 30 years to strippers, sex workers, EAs, PAs, ONS, pretty much everything. I had no idea due to lying, deception, manipulation, gaslighting. My heart is shattered. We are planning on a formal disclosure, but cannot find any CSATs or SA betrayal trauma therapists in a rural area to help us. I am on a wait list, even go to website groups. How long can I wait for formal disclosure before losing my mind? D-Day was August of, I think, last year. And I have 20 plus options searched online and I can't find anyway. I feel like I'm drowning. So I'm going to, please email me, Tammy, TAMI at Seeking Integrity. Tell me where you're located because I can help you find, somebody. But, running off and doing a formal therapeutic disclosure, if he hasn't done the work to prepare for it, is you're going to get information, but you're going to have another one and another one. And it's just going to add to your trauma. So let us help you hold space and support you while you get the help that you need. But Kristin, thoughts?
Yeah, that webinar we did on do this before going to couples therapy, I was kind of talking about how you kind of want to see your partner set himself down the path towards
Mm-hmm.
recovery and understanding empathy and compassion and understanding what he or she has done to their betrayed partner by their
Mm-hmm.
actions. You really want to
Mm-hmm.
kind of build up their empathy muscle because it's often lacking. It's like you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
this behavior's existed since adolescence, which means they often kind of say generally whatever age your addict started their behavior is kind of when their emotional state froze. So you are getting a partner who has the emotional capacity of an adolescent, and that has to be built up and reinforced and structured around other people in recovery who can help this person along before they can effectively do a full disclosure. Um, Now, and for you, I know you're just trying to ask for safety, but I guess it's like you kind of have to ask yourself, what would finding out all this information do for you? And are there other things that you can do right now to help you feel safe? I mean, do you need a in-house separation or a physical separation until the therapeutic disclosure occurs? I mean, what do you need? Understandably, your whole world has been turned upside down. And I hope that you can find some betrayed partners groups that you can go into. There is also that you're saying you're trying to find. There's the We Tonglen is a free online support group for females with male sex addicts. There's a lot of resources that get exchanged there. You can also go to S-Anon yourself or Al-Anon yourself to get assistance there. But yeah, I don't know if your partner is going to be able to give you the safety that you are so desperate to find right now, and understandably so. So I hope you
Yes.
can find the help support.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, because it's bad. I mean, you've had two STIs, so you know that there's stuff, and so just getting more details is like it really is. How do you get support to hold the space for you? What do you need in this moment? Your healthy boundaries, so that you're, because formal therapeutic disclosure is an event sort of. It's like, okay, we're going to do this, but it like people think, oh, then I'm going to be able to heal. And I'm telling you, you can heal whether you have it or not. You can be on a different path, and lots of, doing one and doing it right well, makes a huge difference. But doing it, quickly and hurried and having it be incomplete, is painful for both of you. So, Kristin, great to see you. Thank you so much. Thanks for all the great questions from everybody. This will be posted on our website probably later today. Lots of resources. You can always email either Kristin or I, and I'll see you in 2 months. It'll be March already. Ooh.
Too much March.
Bye.